that's us streaming. Okay, so yeah, plan tonight is I did a bunch of optimization work during the week. Unfortunately, that did break the navigation meshes, so I need to try and fix them. So it's running nice and smooth. This is the Windows build, but you see that like skeletons are just wandering away into the distance because there's no navigation mesh anymore. The reason for that is actually that we changed to use triangle strips instead of triangle lists for rendering and for animation. But somewhere along the lines, because we use the same mesh loading code for nav meshes and display meshes, that means that the navigation mesh routines aren't working. And that's probably one of the reasons for the speed up, is that we're no longer doing nav mesh queries, so it's possible we're not getting quite as much speed up as I was hoping for. Well, I'm going to fix that today and we'll have a rough idea. And I'm going to turn down my music a little. It's just slightly distracting. There we go. Okay. So yeah, first step is to get a look at our nav mesh. So the way this works is the nav mesh has a mesh object, which is the asset that we load from disk. So we have an asset for a mesh, and we have a cache of triangles, and whenever we do a nav mesh query to see if an area on the nav mesh blocks our movement or it causes the player to fall off the edge, whenever we're doing that query, we'll call get nearest navigable point, and we give a point in, and it will return the nearest navigable point, and it'll tell us what type the edge that that point is on, like what that type is. For update cache triangles, when we're pulling the vertices out of this mesh, that's one of the things that changed for our triangle strips, so that's probably what's causing our issue. I guess the first thing I want to do is, if I put a breakpoint in get nearest navigable point while the game is running, I can kind of work backwards from there and refresh my memory, because I've not touched the nav mesh code in quite a while. So it'd be good to get an idea. Okay, so game's running, skellies are walking around, hunting me in a pack. Put a breakpoint in. Okay, so we're not hitting that breakpoint. I'm getting beat up. Interesting, so we're not pulling any triangles here? Yeah, our count's 0. Okay, so that means that our update cache triangles routine isn't... See, it's doing a transform on the mesh vertex here. It's applying a transform to it, but it's not necessarily storing it anywhere, because this triangle list here should get populated, so it's possible that I've just made a mistake. I'm going to look through my Git code to see in the history what's actually going on here. That's just a temp folder change. Let's look at history for nav mesh. Okay. Yeah, so previously we would go through all of our triangles and we'd multiply, I see, so we'd assign our internal triangles to mesh triangles. Then we'd go through the triangles and apply our transform. What we're doing now is we're just going through these vertices. So I think I maybe did this in a rush when I was converting things over to use triangle strips. And what I should really have done here is quite different. So the mesh does still have, mesh asset does have a few things here. So it's got vertices and indices. It doesn't actually have triangles anymore. So we maybe need to do a bit of conversion code here, because we store the unique vertices and then the indices into those vertices for the purposes of constructing the actual triangles. So I'll need to use both of these instead of just caching the triangles in the nav mesh. So what I can do here, this is just a first pass, not necessarily what I'm going to keep, but we're going to have the vertices and the indices cached inside this nav mesh, and that way it's not affecting the ones directly inside the mesh asset itself. And when we update cache triangles, I'm going to still build a list of triangles here. I mean, to be honest, I probably could still cache triangles and just unwind them in here. So I could go through, instead of that, I could kind of go through the indices. So grab the indices out of the mesh indices. And then for each one of these, we look up the mesh vertices by the index, and that gives us a vertex. And we want to populate a number of triangles based on that, and then I want to transform these as we're caching them. So I could do b.vector, so that's the position inside the vertex, will get transformed. And then we kind of just want to put it onto a triangle. So I guess I could keep a temp triangle up here, and it has verts. I think verts is an array 3. Yeah, it's an array 3. So I can say verts at, let's see, so the size t, ti, started at 0, ti equals v, and then we say ti, how are we going to do it? We could do, when we're assigning it, I could do ti++, so it'll be a post increment after the assignment, and then we'd say, oh hey, thanks for the follow. Bumfuzzled Games, I like your name. Cheers. Yeah, so we're gonna have a, in here we've got this ti, so this is for the current triangle, and I'm going through and checking to see if this is going to be after that increment more than or equal to 3, and that means we're at the end of that triangle. So we want to say this triangle's finished, let's add it to our triangle list cache. It's pretty rough and ready. Could definitely do it more efficiently, but I want to get it working. So yeah, triangles in place back, and we'll just push on the temporary triangle here, and we'll set ti to 0, and then that way we're just always building up our list. We clear it first, we go through our indices, we get the vertex for that index, we transform it in place, we use ti, which will start at 0, an increment, as our index. So to begin with, that will be t verts 0 equals v, which is our transformed vertex. And then if this number is greater than or equal to 3, it means we've finished this triangle and we can place it back. I think that'll work. Gonna step through it and we'll see how we do. Okay, so first of all, that should be 0. Our verts is size 3, completely uninitialized. We step over, look at our verts. The first one has been initialized and ti should be equal to 1. That's correct. So if I put a breakpoint in here and then we let it run, ti should now be 3. Yep. We add our triangle on. Ti is equal to 0 now because we reset it. Okay, so we know going into this that for every index there's going to be a vertex. So there's no point, our triangles is a std vector, there's no point resizing this vector a whole bunch, because we know how many vertices we're writing in ahead of time. There's no condition in here about whether or not we add the triangle, so we can just go triangles.reserve. Not even reserve, it'd be better to do resize, because then we can just use a specific triangle and we won't have to in place back. So to do that, we'll say mesh indices dot size divided by 3, and then the triangles are going to be the right size. So here, instead of in place back, we now just need to use the current index into our triangle list, which I mean, we could just keep a separate index. So TI can become TVI, which is triangle vertex I. And then we use TI, just making sure it doesn't exist. No. So we're going to use TI to be the triangle index. That's our current triangle. So then we do triangles. So here, when we're getting T, we could actually just do auto T equals triangles TI as a reference, and then now we don't need this temporary T, and we don't need to ever place it back. We just reset that. We don't need to clear it because we're going to be overwriting all of them. I think this is going to be more efficient. We need to increment TI at some point as well. That will be after we've been through all three of these. So increment TI. Technically, we could do this where there's just one index, and the index could be just divided by 3 when we're looking up the triangle. But I think it would actually just be quicker to have 2 rather than doing the divide in the loop. Just in my mind, that's going to be more efficient to just increment this and clear that versus doing a divide. It's a lot more cycles if the Dreamcast has to do this. Could probably optimize it more, but let's make sure it works first. I think that's probably the right level. See if it'll constrain our characters. You can just do index divided by 3. It'll truncate towards 0. Yeah, I want to avoid the divide. That's what I was thinking too. Okay. Yep, we are now constrained to the world. Something unusual is definitely going on though. You won't be able to tell this from watching, but I'm just pressing the left button there, and it's as though there's a face that doesn't exist on the nav mesh or something. It's as though the bottom right half of the triangle, like this area, is the only walkable area, and this top area is kind of out of bounds. I'm actually going to not spawn enemies because it's kind of getting in the way. I think it's in here. Can't find it. Enemy type. Just where we assign them. You know, it's not in that file, that's why I can't find it. It's in dungeon, or zone. Here we are. So we just want to go enemy count 0, and we won't spawn any. Okay. So yeah, no skeletons now, but you can see if I just go to the left, I'm kind of walking into this wall. This part of the nav mesh still worked correctly, so we're not allowed to go through here. And there's a kind of issue here as well, so let's try and figure out why that is. Oh, I think I might have an idea. Maybe. Let me see. I remember that in the meshes, we set a boolean to say whether it's a triangle strip. Now, if it isn't a triangle strip, no, that should be fine because we will still use these indices. If it isn't a triangle strip, we just don't overwrite the indices, because if it is a triangle strip, if we were able to generate one on load, we do a std move of the tri-strip indices, and that overrides our indices. And then we run over to make sure that they're all within range, and we set this flag to say true. But if it didn't work, we don't use the indices that were the output of generating the triangle strip. We just stick with our standard indices, So that should be okay. So maybe there's something else wrong? Put a breakpoint here. Let's just watch this data come in. See, I've not just made a silly mistake. Okay, so first index is 4. How many do we have? 12. 12 indices, 8 vertices. Very simple shape. Nice one to debug, really. We can see here that the 0 and 1 are 0.49, and that 4 is 0.49 on X, and the rest of them are 1. So we can kind of keep an eye on those. So this TVI is now 1 because we've just gone over the increment. If we look at our triangle verts, that first one has been initialized and the other ones haven't. So 20364, 0.05, -4. So then if we look at the mesh vertices, there should be a vertex that matches that, and it should, I think, be 4. No. Okay, yeah, so these actually aren't the same values. Why is that? So X is 2.03, 0.05, -4. Oh, of course, it's because we applied this transform. So it's going to be modified by this transform, which is something we've always done. So that should be fine. If I look at the history of the nav mesh again, yeah, we multiply each one of the triangle vertices positions by transform. So here I grab the vertex, multiply its position, add it to the triangle. So it's 4 triangles. Okay, immediately that looks wrong because only the first one is actually the first vertex of this triangle is populated, and the rest are at 0, 0. So yeah, something's busted there. We do increment TVI, so we should be writing into the next vertex of this triangle. Oh, it's maybe just not initialized because the loop hasn't finished yet. I want to see what we end up with. So, Bumfuzzled Games, if you're still around, what are you working on just now? Okay, so yeah, 0 is fully populated. 1 is fully populated, and 2, and 3, okay. Just as an experiment, I'm going to try what happens if I don't look these up by index. Well, I suppose the thing is, I can see how many there are. I can actually look in Blender. So this is the nav mesh that we're trying to load. So this will get triangulated on export. Probably something like this. 0, 1, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 triangles to it. But interestingly, the walkable area that I end up in is kind of different to this. The bit that I can walk in, points along this divide, which just implies that we're not constructing our triangles properly. So, going back to the code, it's as though what we really want is to figure out whether that vertices array is already in the order that we care about. So there's only 8 vertices. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's correct. And how many indices do we have? 12 indices, which again, that sounds right. So if we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, well, depends how you wind it. It's triangulated. If we assume that this is the triangulation that we're using, maybe the first thing I should do is look at how many triangles I get as output. Like if I put my breakpoint here on this return statement, how many did I end up with? 4. Ah, you know what? I bet this calculation's wrong. It should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If we take our indices divided by 3, it is 4 though, because we have 12 indices. It's definitely true that we want 3 indices. No, we don't want. If this is triangulated successfully, that's really the question, isn't it? I'm kind of assuming here that it isn't, but the whole point of triangle strips is it wouldn't be indices divided by 3. I'd have to deconstruct this. That's the problem. So I bet that this is a triangle strip. It is, yeah, that's what it is. Just haven't quite wrapped my head around triangle strips functionally yet. So yeah, so what we want to do here, instead of resizing this to this, we know it's one triangle strip, so it depends whether we're using strips or not. So I could say, when I'm constructing these triangles, it's going to be the same problem. I'm just following indices as though this is a triangle list. So we really want to do 2 separate things. If it's a valid strip, we want to do something else. We want to unwind them. So we want to say, still triangles resize. We only support single strips, so every mesh is going to be one triangle strip. So if I resize my triangles to the number of indices minus 2, that should be the correct number, because only the first 2 vertices that you specify are extra. Every additional index after those first 2 is going to specify a new triangle. So if you want to count the number of triangles, you just take those first 2 away and you end up with the number of triangles. I think that's right. And then when we're following the indices like this, we just need to do the same work. So we just need to say it's like we want to build a new triangle from the last two things that we specified every time. So we can unwind our triangles. By unwind, I just mean don't store them compressed as a triangle strip, but turn them back into a triangle list. So to do that, we'd say, here's the triangle that we're currently on, and that uses the triangle index. So that's fine, that can be where it is. When we're looking up our vertex by index, that's kind of the thing that we care about here. So in the first one, we look up our index, we multiply it, we add it to our triangle. It's almost like when we go into a new triangle, we always want to add the last two things that we specified. I think that's how it works. So like if I'm doing ++ ti, we want to say, what were the last two vertices, and copy those to the beginning of the next triangle. We could try that. So it would be, before we do ++ ti, well, if we've just done ++ ti, we can do ti -1 to get the last one. No, we don't even need to, we still have t, so we can do triangles ti dot verts 0 is equal to t dot verts 1, and then triangles ti verts 1 equals t verts 2, and then tvi is equal to 2 instead of 0, right? So the first time this comes around, tvi is going to be 0. We pull the first vertex, we multiply it, we grab our triangle, and we increment tvi, post-increment tvi, to look up t-verts and assign it. When tvi first becomes equal to 3, we will fall into here. We'll increment ti to go to the next triangle. We'll pull the next triangle and assign the first two vertices of the next triangle to the last two vertices of the current triangle. We set tvi to 2, and then that means that on the next loop round it'll do the same thing for the one vertex it still needs. It'll pull that triangle, but it'll have tvi equal to 2, so it'll just fill in the last vertex, and then on every loop iteration subsequent, it'll just always fill in these two. Okay, I think that'll work. Have I got my loop condition? No, I got my loop condition the wrong way around. Wait. Okay, so this is triangle strip is false, because the first one assumes it's a triangle list. That was the original implementation. And then this one is for the triangle strip. Errors. Okay. There are 10 triangles and I'm trying to access the 10th triangle. So this indices.size -2 assumption must be wrong. I think. Or there's something else going on. At some point there isn't going to be a next triangle. If ti is less than triangles.size. It's quite a branchy inner loop. Not totally happy with the efficiency here. I suppose, to be fair, this doesn't have to run very often. It's just an upfront cost because it puts them in a triangle cache. But still. Anyway, so with ++ ti, we say if that's less than size, we can use it. Otherwise, we should very much be at the last index at that point. Actually, let's just try that and see if it fixes our issue first. Okay, game's running. We are getting stopped at the right areas. Nice. The nav mesh is not very exact just now, so you can actually just walk right into the wall, but technically it is constraining your movement to the perimeter of the room. So that all looks correct now, at least. Cool. We have fixed nav meshes. Awesome. Let's get that checked in. Support triangle strips for nav meshes. First pass. I will probably come back to this at optimization time. That's a good first pass. Okay, next up, I'm going to change my current task. We fixed nav meshes. So now we're going to look at adding a new boss to the game. So I actually haven't added any bosses to the game yet, we just have enemies. So my plan now is to bring somebody in. I started making a boss character that I'm wanting to be the first boss in the game at the end of the dungeon area. And he is an executioner. The thing is, I did make him using the other version of Blender, the newer version of Blender, because I wanted to learn that. But the blend files aren't strictly compatible, so I need to figure out how I'm going to do this. Whether I export him from the new Blender and try and use my same scripts that I use for the old Blender, or do I try and just export him as FBX and then import him into the old Blender. I think to begin with, I'm just going to bring him into... just get him open and have a look. Just see what he looks like to begin with. So he's an executioner character. So I want to open that in Blender 279. And which Blender am I pointing to? I'm not even sure. It's Blender 3.3 by default. Let's just double click. Okay, so this is a terrifying texture map. Let's see if I go over to our 3D view. There's kind of nothing loaded just now. I think that this is just confused because of the file was actually made in a newer Blender. So let's get a look with the new Blender. So I do have a bunch of different versions of Blender. 279B is the old one. 330 is the LTS for the new version. So let's bring him over. There he is. Now, I was doing some tests with the texture painting. Now, sadly, this version of Blender actually lost a lot of my work while I was texture painting due to a bug. That's why I was testing this, but I'll quickly clean it up just so we can put him into the game. I had done a lot of texture painting around his mouth, so he had like an actual kind of grotesque open mouth. But yeah, today I think we'll just get him good enough that he can come into the game. And I'll take it from there. And now I have to remember how to use this version of Blender. Maybe need to adjust the positioning of his cowl here, because I can see some parts of his body are kind of sticking through. And there's a little texture paint window there, just because I guess I still have this face selected. Just grab these parts. I did start giving him an armature as well. It's quite good. Yeah. So I should just be able to paint him purple again now. I know that there's a way to do a bucket fill with this, but not too fussed about getting this done right or too efficiently just now. Or too correct, I just want to be efficient just now. Okay, in T-pose, he doesn't move through this, but he does move through it in... He does move through it when he's posed. So, if I select his armature, we go into pose mode, you can see that when his arm's down, oh man, I still need to fix his texture around his trousers. Yeah, there's a couple of ways I could do it. I could add some extra geometry on this so that his arms don't cut through. To be honest, just to get him into the game, I'm not even going to bother taking him out of bind pose. I'll probably I'm just going to colour him in so that he's kind of, broadly speaking, the right colour. Just fix this up. I kind of rage quit last time I was working on this file because it lost my work, which is why it's in this kind of state. Let's see. Let's colour in his butt. I haven't been checking chat. Actually, you won't be able to see half of what I've got here because it's not on that side of the screen. There we go. I've just been talking to myself. Here we go. This is what it looks like. So I'm not a 3D artist by trade or anything. It's something I'm learning because it's a really useful skill. And every so often I'll dabble with Blender. I really like Blender as a tool. I think it's great. Yeah, I'm kind of slow with it still. I've worked with a lot of artists and they're really fast with it. It's really impressive. Left click and right click do get me a little mixed up. There we are. That'll do. And then make sure I save this image as I go, because that's what got me last time. And then I need to texture paint his boots next, I think. Okay. So the idea with this character is he is the executioner that's employed by the king, and he is the boss at the end of the first zone of the game, which is the dungeon that Etienne the Jester gets locked in. His general kind of attack pattern is going to be fairly simple. It'll be a kind of charge attack. He'll have an axe that he can wield, and the point of him as a boss is, first of all, to introduce the player to the idea of what a boss battle is in the game. He's not going to be easy by any means, but he is supposed to be easier than the other bosses. He'll use fewer complex maneuvers from the player's point of view than some of the later bosses, but the main thing is I want the player to be very comfortable with the dodge roll ability and managing their stamina properly. So he will be charging at them, he'll be swiping his axe with quite a wide area of effect, and he'll just be kind of an absolute unit, just like a solid character. When he isn't charging, there'll be moments where you can get behind him and do damage without taking a risk of him swinging at you. I think I like the idea of him being very opportunistic. If you run up to him, and even if he isn't in his kind of attack mode, if he isn't like just winding up for an attack already, I like the idea of him just jabbing you with the axe, maybe kind of lunging for you if you're too close. And it's all going to be about the player managing their stamina properly and understanding how to control the position of their own character first, just to get out of the way. So that'll be interesting. Okay, he's looking generally okay. There's a little bit on his belt I just want to fix for the texture painting. There we go. That'll do for now. Okay, so yeah, there's a couple different things here. So I do actually want to maybe just do this to try and create area where, yeah, his body doesn't stick through. There we are. That'll do. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna export him, save this image for a start. I'm gonna export him as an FBX, just so that I can pull him into the older version of Blender. And this image is already just a PNG, but I'm gonna save as, just so we have a standalone copy of it. Okay. And now if I save that blend file, that's fine. But now we're going to create a new blend file with the older Blender, delete all the startup objects, and I'm just going to bring him in. So import an FBX file, grab him from the desktop. I don't know if you can hear my stomach grumbling, I haven't had dinner yet, so apologies for that. So we brought him in, you can see his mesh, it's kind of not really in the right position. There's a lot of extra stuff going on with the bones. It looks like there's maybe even extra bones on there. Don't know if he's going to be posable in the way they usually are. There's an X-ray mode for rendering, I can't remember how you do that. It does seem to be posed basically correctly, but see if we can get him textured first anyway, and we'll sort the pose out. Okay, so sign in here. There we are. That's him in the old Blender. So I'm just going to create a separate source file for him. Executioner, old Blender, .blend. Now, yeah, what I'd like is if I make a separate 3D viewport, and then I don't know if I can do this. Can I make it so this viewport? Yeah, I'll put him on a different layer. And then is there a way for me to like change the layer for just one viewport? Maybe not. No, okay. Still useful to have the armature on a different layer, but what I'd like is to get a kind of X-ray view for the mesh himself. I can zoom in wireframe. Then we can bring the armature in that way. That works. There we are. So it is posable. It just has these extra bones in the end. So what I'm going to do is just delete them. think that's maybe the way that I exported the mesh in FBX. I think there is an option to add extra bones to the end. I probably just left that option enabled, most likely. Alrighty. Here he is. Time to try and get him in the game. So, to begin with, I'm going to just add some basic code support for bosses. We don't even have any code support for bosses yet. So to start with, I'm actually just going to open in the source files over here. Not those source files. The code source files. HarleQuest. Entities. We have an enemies folder. So what I'm going to do is make a subfolder in enemies for bosses. And then I'm going to take an existing enemy, I'm going to take the knight as a starting point for them. Because knights probably have the most kind of logic in place just now. Okay, and then just rename this to Executioner. Rename the header. And then in Visual Studio, I'm going to look at entities. I'm going to add a filter in here for bosses. Then add existing items, and we're just going to add that from here. Add an executioner. And then, for now, we're going to do this in a really simple way and just use everything the same as the knight, but make him the executioner. We don't have an enemy type for that yet, and also this needs to include bosses, execution, HPP, enemy type. Now, there is a question of, do I want a separate enum? I think no. I actually want to just make enemies basically just, or make bosses the same as enemies. I might change that later, but for now, executioner. Okay. And then yeah, just want to do a find replace for this. I know there's automatic refactoring tools in Visual Studio for renaming things, but for one reason or another, I don't trust them. Just need to spend some time with them maybe. Just never trust automatic refactoring tools. Find replace is okay, we kind of know what that does. But something about trusting it to semantically understand everything. Maybe I'm just being silly. But yeah, okay, so we now have an executioner. The next step, first of all, I'm just going to build the code. Does it build? It does not build. Redefinitions of things. Well, fair enough. These are, because we're using what's called a Unity build, it's a combined build of all the CPP files. These are already in the knights file. So what I'm going to do instead is maybe just going to namespace. I'm in the wrong file because the executioner is the one that I copied them into. So in here, got like time guard to strike and all this. I think if I make these member variables, that might be a better idea. It does mean that if we change them in the header, we'll have to rebuild a lot more code. But to be honest, I'm not going to be changing these too much. I'll probably come up with a different approach to these types of variables at some point. Having them as a member variable is really bad for enemies where you have lots of them, because it's just going to use up more memory. And of course you can make them static, like that. That's not too bad, but I feel like I'll come up with a better overall approach for these types of variables in the future. Things like anonymous namespaces for these, or using static variables in the file, would normally work, but they don't work when you're doing a Unity build. On the Dreamcast, it doesn't matter at all, because we compile them separately, but for Windows, we're doing a Unity build. Const float can't have an in-class initializer. I mean, makes sense that it can't. Yeah. So for these, we're just going to do static float const executioner. And then you don't need to use the static keyword for the actual definition. In a way, this might solve both problems, really, because it's static in here, which means it's not going to be included in the memory footprint of objects of the class, but we give it a definition in the CPP file, meaning that we won't have to recompile other things that include the header if we change them. And also, they won't have conflicting namespace violation with other things that have the same names. I think that's everything we need to do, unless there might be an ambiguity issue. No, it's happy enough with that. Okay, that's good. Alright, so, I mean, the game builds, we're not using the executioner yet. But there we have it. We've got his behavior in. We don't have any animations for him yet. I haven't defined any in Blender. I'm probably not going to just yet. I'm probably just going to have him standing still. We'll just get him rendering in the game first. I think that's a good enough first step. So in the game screen, when we load all of our enemies, let's look for where we load the knight. So these are the animations for the knight, so that's not really relevant yet. But then here is where we load the actual mesh entity for the knight, including his skeleton and his texture. But because this is a boss, I would kind of like him to be in a separate section. These are kind of just loosely defined just now, but executioner. And then the path would be characters, bosses, executioner. And then we're going to load executioner, and then we can just load his mesh, skeleton, and his PNG from there. So we have his PNG already, that's on the desktop, so I'll move it through to the file it needs to be in. So final shared characters, bosses is the subfolder, and then executioner. Okay, there's his texture, and then we need his mesh. So I need to export his mesh from Blender in our custom format. So we can export him as an ambition mesh, and that can go in final shared characters, executioner, bosses, executioner. Executioner dot mesh. $781 vertices is reasonably good for a character like this. We will get more detail at some point, so we will have more vertices, but that's a good starting point. Next we need his skeleton, his armature, thing. Skeleton. Export that too. Alrighty, so we have these three files. We've got our mesh PNG and our skeleton. So the mesh, 256K. Gonna be compressing these at some point, but yeah, that's what it is. 1K for the skeleton. Okay, 68K for the texture. Yeah, these file formats will need compression at some point, or just removal of redundant data. Okay, so let's see. So that's probably everything we need to start with from the art point of view, and then from the code point of view, we're loading this in. So that's for night mesh, so we want executioner mesh. And everywhere that night mesh is used, we'll just do the same for the executioner. The boss is at the end here. Okay, so he is an executioner. That's his type. We'll just replace all of these the same way. Now these are setting the mesh entity, which we've already defined. Well, we've not defined it yet, but we will soon. And there's a bunch of animations that you'll have. Now we're actually just gonna I'm not doing that right. I'm trying to comment them out. Oh, it's like KC, of course it is, because it's Visual Studio. Yeah, so this executioner class, and then we're just going to std move him in. And to get this executioner class, we just need to include him at the top of this file. Okay, now I don't know if it will crash because it can't find these. We might have to add some logic to let it ignore them, but we'll see. Oh, I didn't add the executioner himself to the room data just yet. Mesh. Here we go. No, that's the game screen. So here we are, night mesh. So we're going to have a new section for boss meshes, just here. No, executioner. There we go. Okay, well, the game still works. We're not trying to spawn a knight just yet. So we'll go do that. Not a knight, sorry, an executioner. Here, so valid enemy types, I'll just add executioner here. Try and spawn one of them. And then just one. Oh my god. That is terrifying. Okay. It always goes like this the first time though, doesn't it? Oh my god. It can hurt me as well. Not surprising, look at him. Okay. There's a whole bunch of issues here. So, I mean, he's rotated 90 degrees from where he should be. He's absolutely massive. And it looks as though the way that his skeleton is transformed is totally wrong. Okay, where to start then? I think I'll start by scaling him down, right? So you can see more of what's going on with him. Okay, that's exactly the same as it was. Did I not do that right? Apply scale, apply scale. Mesh, mesh. And then we'll do the same for his skeleton. That's better. Okay. Still pretty gnarly. I should kill him, yeah. Still do damage to the monstrosity. He spawns a heart. Okay. Right, what's next? It's hard to know where to start. So I think he's rotated 90 degrees from where he should be because all of my other characters are on the X axis. So if I open like Jester, oh, it's an old version of him. Not Jester 2, that's Etienne's actual model. Here we are. So yeah, he's looking on the negative Y. Yeah, he's looking down negative Y. So we'll do the same for our knight here. Yeah. Just apply scale, rotation. Mainly rotation. That's fine. Okay, so we'll export his mesh. And we'll export the skeleton as well. Okay, that's still... Weirdly, it looks like a lot more correct now, but did I can't even remember if I just exported both of these correctly. I think I did. It's always worth double checking. I did both of them. Yeah, that's still wrong. It's still like 90 degrees off from the direction you should be facing. I'm trying to think why that would be. Oh, is it because I've not applied the mirror modifier? Well, I mean, it shouldn't matter. It might. Yeah, let's just let's see what happens if... Well, I have applied it. Yeah, actually, you know, when I export him as FBX, that would totally have applied it. That's fine. Those bits aren't textured. Oh well. Okay. Not sure how to go about debugging this one. He seems to be 90 degrees out from other enemies. Like if I swap him for an enemy that we've already got, it's based on the knight's code. So if I spawn in a knight instead, totally fine. Kind of how you'd expect. The knight has a bug where if you go out of his range while he's attacking, he just stops attacking and he chases you. But yeah, and he's not got a death animation yet. That's fine. So if we change it back to Executioner, or just do it like that. What are the differences? Well, the knight actually has some animations defined. The Executioner doesn't have any. This is just his default, his T-pose. So if I was to bring the knight back in, and then over in the knight's file, if I was to Well, what would I do? I think what I want to do is when we're setting the knight up, just don't give him any animations, the same ways we didn't give the executioner any animations. No, he's fine. His T-pose is like correct. It's facing the correct way, he's the right scale. No animation going on, he's just in T-pose. Okay, so the thing with the knight is unique. I'll try and look specifically at what's going on. I need to swap it back so it's back to executioner. It's still quite funny. Right, so again, 90 degrees out. It looks as though his mesh is kind of conflicted, like there's his armature is kind of conflicted. It's like there's something wrong with the way his armature is set up that's different to how the other things work that's causing that issue in the engine. Like I can immediately see that there's some separated bones. Now actually, if we look at the parent hierarchy here, you can see that there's a few things, like around his shoulders there's like this little bone coming up here. Go into edit mode. How's this set up? So it's like it's kind of too high up, like it kind of feels like that could even be joined there. I don't know exactly why I didn't do that. And then there's this section down here, which again isn't connected at all. It's been a long time since I've used this, so I'm not 100% sure how to join these. I can make parent like that. I think the order that I select them in matters, so I'm just doing Control J. Make parent connected? No. There we are. That's it. So I can connect those, and then down here, well, there's a couple options. That's not working at all here, possibly because they're not in the same place. Let's see, so I mean this is his root, should be his root. There's like a line coming off the back of it. I don't know if that's like a transform thing. It's like most of his bones are disconnected. Yeah, parent, so like this is parented to that, which is what you'd expect, but it's not connected. So like if I select this, I can connect it like that. This is coming back to me now. I can connect that like that. So like this doesn't have a parent, it's just like a free floating bone. Which I don't think I intended. None of these have parents. I feel like what I want is for this to be parented to this bone. So like that bone is, let's see what these are called. What did I call these? Torso lower. So the parent of upper leg L should be torso lower. And it's not connected. So like that's going to be connected to the top, or it's parented to the top of that. I would like it to be the other way. I don't know if that's going to be easy. basically just want to make sure that there aren't like loose things. I want everything to be connected in some way. Maybe what I'll do instead is make it, I don't want it so that if I rotate this bone, it'll like, or move the bone in such a way up here that it influences down here. So what I might do is actually parent that to this root instead. And then we can parent this one to the root as well. And then everything is just parented to like this object. So then if I change those, right, and we want this also to be parented to the root. Not connected. There you go. So now at least it's in some semblance of a hierarchy. Cool. Let's try re-exporting that. I'm sure if anyone watching this is an animator, you will be tearing your hair out just now. I'm not an animator. I enjoy it. I'd like to learn how to do it better. Okay. Skeleton's exported. I don't think we need to re-export the mesh. I think that the bone weights are going to be the same. I'm going to do it anyway, just for luck. Nah, he's still quite busted. Okay. I'm gonna try. Well, that's interesting. There's a rotation of -90 there. Is this an apparent inverse issue? Because I've had those before. Yeah, okay. I mean, that's horrendous. But his rotation relative to his parent should be nothing. And then the is that it maybe? I'm not sure if that'll have made any difference, but we can try. So it's kind of bound not quite correctly actually. There's still a kind of location offset here. I don't know where it came from exactly, but I can try and remedy it. So if I grab him on not that axis, I want to grab him on everything except the y-axis. Axis, okay. So I guess I could do it this way. Let's see. I don't have a keypad on this keyboard, which does make blendering a little awkward. I need to figure out a way to do that. Here we are. That's looking better. Yeah, okay. So then, let's try re-exporting that and see if it works. Skeleton. Mesh. Okay. Is it even any different? Different would be good. It is... I don't think that's any different. I think he looks the same. I don't think that made any difference, sadly. I have had issues before where it's like Windows isn't copying the right files over, all that kind of thing. But in this case, I don't think that's it. like Visual Studio not copying the right files. I think that this is updating what I'm doing. It's just sadly not looking the same between the two. Ah, okay. Now that's interesting. There's a couple keyframes here, and if I put him in pose mode, he's like on the floor. The way that I've gone about creating him is quite different to how the other models were created in the game, so not entirely surprising that he's got some issues. Just going to delete all his keyframes so that he's just unmodified exactly as he is. Okay. And if I believe Alt-T is that thing, that's probably only a thing in pose mode. I'm trying to just make it so that he's definitely just in normal T-pose mode. Right, let's get a look here. So, of this armature, that's an individual bone, right? So I'm in edit mode, I didn't mean that. So in object mode, there's a 90-degree rotation on the Y, so I'm just going to straight up clear that. Okay. Now, I notice that he is not looking down negative Y anymore. Looking down negative Y. Let's see now. Same issue. So I'm just going to experiment with it a bit. Like if I rotate if I apply rotation to this. Let's try now. So that means in the object transform, it doesn't have any rotation, but in terms of the actual bones, they've been rotated. Okay, no, it's the same. It's the same. I mean, it's not exactly the same. It's slightly different, but like he still has this 90-degree offset issue. Z is, do I have to apply this here too? And then we export the mesh. There we go, okay. Now, he's not correct. There are still issues. There's still issues with, I think some of the way the bone weights are being applied isn't quite right. Possibly because there's so many disconnected bones. Maybe there's a bug in the animation system somewhere. But that's looking better. He's hovering off the floor. There's a bit of mess going on with the vertex weights, like I said. His size is still a little too big. Like, I want him to be big, but not that big. So let's work on the simple thing first. Let's just get his size and his offset correct. So scale down to maybe like, let's try that and see how that looks. Okay, now again, he's still mangled, well aware. still looks a bit big. Like, again, needs to be big, but not that big. Let's try that. That means really small. Okay. Okay. Yeah. It seems a lot more defeatable now somehow. Is that size? It's like, no bother. You're no problem. Okay, so a little bigger. Little bigger. He's even smaller. I don't understand why he's even smaller. I must have not done something right there. That's hilarious. Okay. Oh man. Oh, it's just so funny. Okay. Okay, so did I apply scale to both of them? Yes. Did I export both of them? This is the skeleton. This is the mesh. Okay. Definitely did everything there, so... Okay, he's not big. He's not big. It's 3 clicks. You know, actually, I did just notice this, that as I scale this down, obviously because he's parented, he's like inheriting the parent scale. I need to actually just go and think about this very carefully. But the way that he inherits scale from his skeleton, and how that's distinct from the way that we're going to be applying his scale in Blender. Because he inherits it from the skeleton object because he's parented to the skeleton object. I wonder if that's part of the issue. It's kind of like he's just stuck at a small size now. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to append gesture 2 for reference, so we can see Etienne. That didn't go well. Let's try a different one. There we go. Size reference. That's the skeleton for Etienne. So if we grab just these, scale them so they're like a head above him. That's probably about right. And then just apply scale, save, export. Okay, size-wise, I'm pretty happy with that. He looks intimidating. He's large, he's like, it gets in your face, you know, like if he's coming towards you, you feel like you gotta get out of his way, otherwise something bad's gonna happen, and that's kind of what we're going for. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'd like to fix some of these vertex skinning problems. I kind of don't want to do that on stream though, just because it's probably going to involve a lot of trial and error and messing around. Trying to diagnose what the exact issues are. Worth getting right though, we're going to be adding a lot more content to the game, we're going to be adding a lot more enemies and animations and things, so if there's any bugs with the data or the pipeline, I want to make sure they're totally fixed before anything else happens. So I'm going to mark this task as maybe halfway complete, and then next stream I can come back on and pick it up. And hopefully we'll have the first boss of the game, which would be awesome. Alright, thank you for watching everybody. That's all for now. See you next time.